Hello students, welcome to this present segment Onward to the West Wind. We have only the last canto left for explanation, and I'll first read it and then we'll study it with all its inner meanings. Canto 5. Make me thy lyre, even as the forest is. What if my leaves are falling like its own? The tumult of thy mighty harmonies will take from both a deep autumnal tone. Sweet thought in sadness, be thou, spirit fierce, my spirit, be thou me, impetuous one. Drive my dread thoughts over the universe like withered leaves to quicken a new birth, and by the incantation of this verse scatter as from an unextinguished hearth ashes and sparks my words among mankind. Be through my lips to awaken earth, be through my lips to unawakened earth the trumpet of a prophecy. O wind, if winter comes, can spring be far behind? Now, as you know, the last two lines, the last line, in fact, has been a kind of a proverbial expression in the language. But before that, let's come to the beginning. We know that each of these cantos are dedicated towards a particular purpose. The final canto talks about the power of the wind and the poet's desire to be the instrument of revolutionary change that the wind signifies. Make me thy lyre. Lyre, as you know, is a musical instrument, even as the forest is. The forest is your lyre. Make me one of your lyre like the forest. What if my leaves are falling like its own? But Shelley is too tragically aware of the approach of winter, of the time running out, and the leaves falling are, conventional symbols of that. The tumult of thy mighty harmonies will take from both a deep autumnal tone, sweet though in sadness. From both, from the forest and me, you will find a tone, an autumnal tone, not that of spring though, but that of autumn, sweet in sadness. It is sad because time is running out. It is sad because it's changed with time. It is sad because it falls upon the thorns of life and bleeds, but still it is sweet. Be thou, spirit fierce, my spirit. So you become my spirit. Well, you enthuse me. Be thou me, impetuous one. Let us become one. Let us become united, so to say. How? Drive my dead thoughts over the universe like withered leaves to quicken a new birth. As I've told you, Shelley wanted to execute a revolution through poetry. He calls his thoughts dead thoughts because till now he feels they are ineffectual. But he has to drive them over the universe like withered leaves to quicken a new birth. He wants the west wind to drive it and make them capable of resurrection like the leaves, like the cloud, like the waves. And by the incantation of this verse, again the distinct use of religious imagery, incantation of this verse, scatter as from an unextinguished hearth ashes and sparks my words among mankind. So he wants the west wind to become a kind of a catalyst to the poetic voice. Be through my lips to unawakened earth the trumpet of a prophecy. We can find a reflection of the idea of the Vedic authorship that we find in originally in Plato's Ion. And you must also know that Shelley was deeply influenced by Plato. Of course, Plato is more well known for his Republic, where he actually banishes the poet from his ideal republic. But in his Ion, or Ion, whatever you may call it, another very important work by Plato, he actually calls the poet a Vates, a prophet, a seer into the future. So you find such a reflection of the Platonic idea of the poet being able to see into the future, the poet being a prophet. But the poet here also is an activist over here, a revolutionary over here. The poet also is seen to have a part in changing the world. And if these lines, particularly the line that contains the word prophecy, reminds us of Plato, these particular parts of the poem would also remind us of Marx, who considers, or Marxism in general, which considers the poet to be, or the writer to be, a kind of an activist in the revolution of the masses, in the revolution of the proletariat. So he is not only a kind of a Neoplatonist, but also a kind of a proto-Marxist. Be through my lips an unawakened art, the trumpet of a prophecy. O wind, if winter comes, can spring be far behind? Of course, time is running out, and of course, we are heading an end, but that does not necessarily mean that there would be no resurrection. Of course, we have mentioned Plato, we have mentioned Marx over here, but what about St. Paul, who said, "Not I, but the grace of God in me"? Shelley is reflecting what St. Paul said to some extent. When his thoughts are dead, they will be rejuvenated by the west wind. I don't think this requires any particular explanation. Obviously, let's look at the technical aspects of it. Let's look at the final canto once again. See, there is a kind of a run-on technique used. The run-on lines are, or you may also call it enjambment. The tumult of thy mighty harmonies will take from both a deep autumnal tone, sweet though in sadness. Mighty harmonies, the line which ends in mighty harmonies, and the next line will take from those, comes in a different stanza, in the next stanza, but they are run on. And why does Shelley particularly do it? It suggests the incantative power of the verse and the spontaneity of it. Coming to spontaneity, we have already told you that each of these cantos are written in Tarja Rima. And what is Tarja Rima famous for? It was the rhyme pattern used by Dante in Divina Commedia. And the general way the rhyme is done is ABA, or the rhyme scheme is ABA, BCB, CDC, DED, and EE. EE are the last two lines. We can call it a couplet, and here again it comes very close to the sonnet form in Shakespeare, which often ends in a concluding couplet. You can see this being more or less regularly followed. However, this rhyme scheme you can see there is something 3, 3, 3, 3, 2. So it has a kind of a disorienting pattern. ABA, BCB, CDC, DED, EE. The middle line is taken as the first line in the second stanza. The middle line, however, is not taken, is again taken as the first line in the next stanza. Again the same thing happens, and finally it comes into almost a kind of a sharpened end. Don't you see the entire poem also following that kind of a pattern? It's also a 5-canto poem, and the end seems to be very sharpened, very much purpose oriented. The end will just tell us why Shelley had written the previous 4 cantos. There is a kind of a disorientation in the poetic voice, but there is a kind of a streamlined purpose of it, which this form of terza rima can afford. I don't know whether you are being able to understand it, but somehow you can see it's a kind of a cone, C-O-N-E, cone, placed sideways. That kind of a structure. Anyway, the poem is, the structure is not so apparent over here. It's only, the structure only comes out when it's sought and when we really study the poetic form over here. What comes out is, the different influences on Shelley, the influence of Plato, the influence of St. Paul or of Catholic Christianity, despite his, anger about it, and also the influence of his personal context as well as the political context in which he lived. Ode to the West Wind, Shelley has been widely criticized, particularly by Victorians and early moderns. He has been called a beautiful but ineffectual angel by Matthew Arnold. T.S. Eliot considers Shelley unreadable after 40. But today when we read Shelley, we can see the wonderful power and his understanding of nature coming out in poems such as this. That's all with our study of Ode to the West Wind. Thank you, students.